Okay, so next section is probably one of the most important sections of your application, the work and activity section. It is vital that this section is complete and is thorough, right? Dr. James keeps bringing up, and it's so important, this idea of they don't know you. They do not know who you are. They know nothing about you other than what you put on that piece of paper. You know you. You know yourself inside out. Dr. James and I may know you, but they don't know you. So you want to put the best application forward, because if something is missing, it is human nature to assume the worst. That is what we do. So if you leave something out, if you leave something not complete, what are they going to most likely assume? Either that you don't have that competency, that there was something bad about it, right? That's why students will say, well, I'll just won't talk about that. Well, not talking about it probably makes them assume the worst. This is almost the same philosophy with the work and activities. You have 700 characters in most of the applications to describe what you did in each activity. Most of them have a limit on activities. AMCAS is 15. Most of them, if they don't have a limit, you probably don't want more than 15 anyway, because then you're probably pulling at hairs there. But those 15 should be complete and should be meaningful, and you should explain them as such. That 700 characters is gold. You then get to describe what you did in that 700 characters. Who do they want to interview? The person that says, I shadowed Dr. Smith on Fridays for 6 months. Or the person who describes, it was during my experience with Dr. Smith that I was able to see 7 mammograms, 4 pap smears, whatever it is that you saw, and why that was important. You should use correct medical terminology, and you should give the interview or the reader the ability to see what it was that you actually did. 700 characters is not a lot, so you will use them as well as you can. But that's all you get, so use them. Use them to explain that activity. For some of them, like AMCAS, which is our most popular application, there is the option to indicate 3 as most meaningful. When you indicate those 3, you should indicate 3, because again, what happens if you don't indicate 3 as most meaningful? What do they assume? They assume the worst. That none of them were then you didn't even have 3 meaningful experiences, right? That's what they're going to assume if you don't pick 3 as meaningful. So pick 3 as meaningful, make sure to always complete the application, and when you do that, you then get more space to write about those. So if you've indicated it was most meaningful, you'll definitely want to explain why that was most meaningful, and use that additional characters to do that. Right, we talked about this. Make sure you spend time on this section. Do not fluff over it. Do not think, okay, I've got them in there, they're good. Spend time describing them, why they were important. They do not know you. Write complete sentences, no bullets. This is your time to show them what it is that you did. Also make sure that you, again, are not reaching to add things that weren't or that don't have relevance. Students will sometimes ask me, well, should I include when I was a member of a certain organization? My answer is usually, what did you do? If your answer is, I was a member of the organization, my answer is usually no. Because if someone asks you why that was important, and you don't have any rationale to why you were in that club or how that is going to help you be a better dentist, doctor, physician, then there's no need for it to go on there. If you were a leader in that organization, or if you participated in the events, and you took the time to reflect on those events, then sure, that may be an activity you include. But everything on that application, you should have a connection to it, and you should be able to describe why it was important to you and why it will help you be a better professional. Right, this is the AMCAS. Right, you can see this person used all 700 characters to fully describe what they did. Right, because of my interest in neurosurgery, I accompanied Dr. Harry von Lovren as he performed 3 neurosurgeries. The length of time for the surgery ranged from 5 to 7 hours. I observed several unique cases in the operating room, including tumors in the cerebellum and the Meckel's cave. I also learned about reading MRIs and CT scans and about the significant role technology plays in brain and spinal cord tumor diagnosis and treatment. I performed a literature review to gather information about the intensity of diverse brain and spinal cord tumors displayed in T1 and T2 weighted MRI, right? And it goes on. Did this student get to explain what they did and why it was important and what it is they saw? No, you don't think they did? I think that's a pretty accurate description of all the great things they got to see. It's a lot better than I shadowed Dr. Harry von Lovren for 6 months, and I got to see 3 surgeries, period. And that will be some of the applications that we'll go through, so you don't want that to be yours. For letters of recommendation, hopefully you guys have already started this process. You do need to give your letter writers a minimum a month, and we would prefer that you do not even say a month, that you tell them 2 months to submit that letter. You also want to make sure the person that you're asking can write you a strong letter, or that they are comfortable writing you a letter. Some people don't like the word strong. A mediocre letter is a bad letter. They have to be someone who can write you a letter that talks about your qualities, why you will be a good professional, what it is about the traits that you embody that will assist you and help you persevere. If they can't talk about those things, then they're probably just going to talk about your GPA, which they can already see. Right? These should be another aspect of your application that helps you secure an interview. They should want to meet you. For different application services, you can have different numbers of letters, but most of them are going to require at minimum 2 science faculty. Most of them may require 1 non-science faculty or more, and most of them are going to require at a minimum 1 professional in the field. So if you're trying to go to DO school, then they're probably going to require at least 1 DO letter. If you're trying to go to med school, it would behoove you to have at a minimum 1 letter from an MD, right? And then the way that you can submit those depends on the program. A lot of them, once you go in, and you may have already seen, you'll indicate the names and email addresses of the individuals you want to submit a letter, and it will direct an automated response to that person, and they'll be able to respond. Very few of them will still allow them by mail, right? So remember, they need time to do these. If they're instructors, hopefully you've picked someone who can go beyond just what your GPA is, since that is information that the reviewers already have. Make sure if you have not asked your letter writers now that you are asking them, because we are getting, if you ask them now, 2 months from now is going to be mid-August, right? So you want to get on that process as soon as you can. If you have not talked with them, make sure that you bring them a copy of your personal statement, or at least why medicine, why dentistry, and why you. It does not have to be your full-fledged personal statement, but they need to know why you're trying to do this. Your copy of your transcript, why, maybe a small snippet of why you selected that person. So, I've selected you because I enjoyed time with you in blank setting. I think you could attest to my blank. And you want to give them time and clear instructions. So where are they going to send a letter? Will they be contacted by somebody? Will they need to send it to Interfolio if you have a letter writer service that you pay for? What is the instructions? And then make sure, obviously, like I said, to include your personal statement, transcript, resume. I think I forgot that one prior. Why you've selected them, and be very clear on the instructions for them. I also usually tell students, allow them an out, right? You want them to be able to say, I'm just really too busy right now, I don't think it's a good time for me. Or you want them to be able to say, I just don't know if I am the person to write you the letter that you need, kindly. Because if you do not leave them an out and they feel that they have to write you something, and they write you a mediocre letter, it might not be the letter that's going to help you get an interview. And you may rather have them be honest with you, or say they just don't have the time at that